Rain poured over the remote outskirts of Georgia, each drop pounding against the windshield like a war drum signaling that something was about to happen. Lightning tore through the sky, illuminating the moment a sleek black Mercedes veered gently toward the roadside, then came to a halt with a heavy thud. One of the rear tires had burst. Victor Langston, a white billionaire with a cold expression and meticulously slicked back salt and pepper hair, stepped out of the car with a look of near disbelief. His dark gray designer suit was drenched in seconds. His Italian leather shoes were splattered with mud. He looked around and saw an endless stretch of deserted roads and rain-blurred fields. No houses. There are no gas stations, only the sound of howling wind pounding rain and the dashboard clock ticking by minute after minute, drawing him closer to missing a $1.4 billion meeting in downtown Atlanta. Victor pulled out his phone, only to see the words, "No service, no signal, no assistance, nothing." He stood alone in his high-end raincoat, trying to convince himself that things were still under control. But the truth was, he didn't know how to change a tire, and there was no one around to do it for him, as there always had been. His hand touched the shredded rubber, cold, wet, and helpless. In Victor's world, everything was precisely programmed time, finances power. But now, a single blown tire and a sudden downpour had shattered all that self-assurance in mere minutes. He tilted his head up toward the gray clouded sky, rain still pouring down, and muttered through clenched teeth, "Damn it!" At that moment, Victor was no longer the powerful billionaire everyone chased after. The roadside stranded him, lost, soaked, and utterly alone. But then, through the rain, came a strange sound, not an engine, but laughter. Children's laughter, faint and distant. 3 figures were approaching blurred silhouettes in the downpour. Something was about to change, and Victor didn't yet know that the flat tire was just the beginning of a turning point that would reshape his entire life. The rain continued to pour mercilessly, veiling the world in a silvery, misty curtain. Victor was fumbling with the car trunk, his hands numb from the cold, when a faint squeaking sound of tires against wet pavement approached from afar. It wasn't a car. It was a bicycle. 3 slender figures appeared through the rain. 3 black teenagers pedaling toward the stranded Mercedes on the roadside. Each wore an old faded raincoat streaked with mud. In their hands, there were no phones or cameras, just curiosity and a calm spirit amid the storm. The oldest, Malik, with messy curls tucked beneath a gray knit cap, was the first to speak. "Need some help, sir?" Victor instinctively stepped back, his gaze cautious, a reflex honed over years of accumulating wealth of boardroom politics and business deals, gone sour. But standing before him now were just 3 soaked boys shivering from the cold, but glowing with genuine enthusiasm in their eyes. He pointed to the flattened tire, his voice low and gravelly. "Tires blown, no signal, and I've never changed one before." The second boy, Darius, who wore round glasses, glanced at the already open trunk. He smiled, not mockingly, but the smile that says, "This is easy, sir." He nodded. "There's a spare tools, too. I've changed my dad's before." "It's all the same." Malik and Darius parked their bikes by the roadside without waiting for a reply. The youngest Jalen took off his torn raincoat and spread it on the ground to keep his knees clean as he knelt. They moved in sync, like a practiced pit crew, as if this were just another routine after-school chore. Victor stood still, partly in surprise, partly out of not wanting to get in the way. The 3 boys, though young, handled the situation better than some of the top-tier assistants he'd worked with. Not afraid of getting wet. Victor asked an awkward question, but sincere. "We're already soaked anyway." Jalen shrugged, wiping the tire like he was cleaning a favorite toy. "In the rain. No one complained. No one bargained. No one asked, "Who are you?" There was only the sound of clinking metal bursts of quiet laughter and the rain blending with a sense of rare, serene normalcy. Victor watched them, a rare silence settling within him. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because for the first time in a long while he felt small. Not because of wealth, power, or title, but because these three boys didn't know who he was and helped anyway without hesitation. It was a quiet moment, yet it began to crack open the hardened shell of pride that had wrapped around Victor for many years. 15 minutes later, the new tire had been fitted neatly, and the sleek black Mercedes stood upright again, ready to resume its journey. The rain had begun to ease, but Victor's mind was anything but calm. He looked at the three boys in front of him, soaked, splattered with mud, yet smiling with a quiet ease that was more fulfilling than any profit report he'd ever signed. Victor walked to the trunk, pulled out his wallet, and flipped through it for the most significant bills. He held out a thick wad of cash toward Malik. "Here, boys, take this. It's not much. Honestly, I should be paying more than that." The three boys went silent for a moment. Malik looked at the money, then shook his head. "No need, sir. We didn't do it for the money, but at least let me say thank you." Darius stepped in, his voice gentle but firm. "You say thank you by getting where you need to go. That's enough." Jalen shrugged, as if the whole thing was nothing out of the ordinary. "We've got school tomorrow. We'll still be riding past this road. If someone else pops a tire, we'll stop again." Victor stood still, money in hand, unsure where to put it. For the first time after years of living in a world where every action had a motive, he met people who refused money without conditions. He wasn't used to that. He wasn't used to people helping without networking. He wasn't used to being in need and having no way to repay it. The three boys waved goodbye, turned and wheeled their bikes in the opposite direction. They didn't ask for his number. No selfies, no names. They were just three good kids, quiet as the rain, who showed up and left at precisely the right moment. Victor called after them, his voice tinged with urgency. "What are your names?" Malik turned and grinned wide. "I'm Malik. That's Darius, and that's Jalen. But you don't have to remember that. Just don't forget what we did today." Then they pedaled off their tires, leaving faint arcs of water on the wet pavement, like brushstrokes across the road, painting something in Victor's chest that he couldn't quite name. All he knew was that as he returned to his car, the wad of money still in his hand, the feeling wasn't one of power but a strange emptiness. He glanced at the clock. He'd still make the meeting in time. But as he drove on, what filled his thoughts wasn't the billion-dollar contract, but the three boys with clear eyes and a refusal that carried no resentment. For the first time in years, Victor wasn't sure what worth meant anymore. The next morning, when Victor woke up in his luxury apartment in downtown Atlanta, the image of the three boys fixing his tire in the rain still lingered in his mind, along with Malik's final words. "You don't have to remember our names. Just don't forget what we did today." But as it turned out, Victor wasn't the only one who remembered. A video clip less than a minute long, apparently recorded from a truck cabin across the road, was now spreading like wildfire across social media. The footage showed nothing but three young black boys fixing a flat tire for a white man in a suit in the pouring rain. No dialogue, just the sound of falling rain, the tightening of lug nuts, and the man trying to offer money and being gently refused. The video was titled, "Kindness Needs No Reason." Within just a few hours, the video had over 500,000 shares. One notable post came from a well-known figure in the finance world, Victor himself, who quote tweeted the clip, "I don't know who recorded this, but I was the man in the car. These three boys changed how I see the world. No asking for money and no asking for names. They just helped. And then they left." Below the post were thousands of heartfelt comments in a world full of suspicion. Thank you, boys, for reminding us that kindness still exists. We need more. Malik's, Darius's, and Jalen's. I cried over something so simple. Yes, simple, but extraordinary. In the small town of Evergrove, where the three boys lived, the initial reaction was shock. No one had expected that helping someone fix a flat in the rain would become the emotional epicenter of America overnight. That day at Evergrove High School felt like an explosion. Teachers and classmates swarmed the three boys. Hallways once quiet were now full of whispers, admiration, and flashes of phone cameras. Some asked for photos. Reporters came knocking Malik, Darius, and Jalen. Once just the trio who biked to school had now become symbols of unconditional kindness. Marcia Groves, owner of the town's only bakery, was so moved she handwrote a Facebook post. "We don't have much here in Evergrove, but we have three boys who know how to kneel and help others without waiting for a reward. Starting today, this town should learn to kneel and support each other more." Her post was shared tens of thousands of times and even read aloud on national television. But what truly made the story resonate and go viral was a dual reaction. The world beyond the town felt deeply moved, calling it a ray of light in a storm of lost faith. But inside Evergrove, a place that had quietly harbored assumptions about those black kids, people were forced to ask themselves, had we seen the sound right before us, or just waiting to catch a mistake? Victor, who had long lived by the logic of exchange and calculation, was beginning to realize that some values couldn't be measured in dollars. And those three young boys with a flat tire and laughter in the rain had sparked a wave of kindness that would travel farther than they ever imagined. 2 days after the video went viral across social media, the landline at Jalen's family home rang at 7 a.m. a time, usually reserved for neighbors calling to borrow sugar or offer fresh baked goods. Jalen's mother, Lanita, wiped her hands on her apron and picked it up. "Hello. Is this the residence of Jalen Campbell?" A calm, polite male voice came through. "Yes. I'm his mother. Who's calling?" "Please. My name is Victor Hadley. You may not know my name, but I believe you've heard the story from this past weekend." Lanita paused, breath caught. That name had been all over the television for the past 2 days. The billionaire helped by 3 teenagers in the rain. She turned to look at Jalen, still eating breakfast in his worn-out hoodie. The boy looked back at her, puzzled. "Yes, I know who you are. What's this about, Mr. Hadley?" Victor spoke slowly, his voice no longer carrying the chill of high finance, but a rare sincerity. "I'd like to invite you and your son and the 2 other boys to meet me. Not for TV, not for content. Just because I need to thank them. Most honestly, I know how." A black SUV pulled up in front of Darius's house that afternoon. All 3 boys had been told in advance, but none could honestly imagine what a private meeting with a billionaire would look like. Victor received them not in a glittering high-rise boardroom, but in a cozy community space within the Hadley Group campus. The room had mural-covered walls, chess tables, and a reading nook for employees' children, something Victor had personally designed. The 3 boys stepped in shy but curious. The warm lighting cast a soft glow on the same rain-soaked faces that had become a national symbol just days ago. Victor stood, removed his tie, and walked toward them, not to speak immediately, but to offer a slight bow, a gesture that made all 3 boys freeze. "I used to think I understood success," Victor began, "until you fixed my tire. No requests. There is no expectation of reward. What you fixed was something I didn't even know had broken inside me. Trust." Ethan, now sitting a bit straighter, asked quietly, "So, you called us here just to thank you?" Victor smiled and pulled out a thick envelope. "Not just thank you. I have a proposal." The boys exchanged skeptical glances. Victor turned on the large screen behind him. An image appeared, the rundown Evergrove Community Center, peeling roof tiles, rusted playground equipment, and a sun-faded sign. I know you don't want personal rewards, but if you're willing, I'd like to help rebuild this place with you, so other kids can have a space to play, learn, and believe in something good. A heavy silence filled the room. Then Jalen chuckled softly and nodded. Well, you just signed up for a lot of work. That roof leaks like crazy. The paint's falling off in sheets, and the swing set squeaks like it's haunted. The room burst into laughter. Victor extended his hand. Deal. Malik, Darius, and Jalen all reached out 3 small hands, sealing a promise far bigger than any of them had expected to make. The weather that day was gentler than usual. Sunlight peeked through scattered clouds, casting a soft golden glow on the dirt road leading to the Evergrove Community Center, a place once filled with childhood laughter, now echoing only the wind whistling through broken shingles and a rusty swing creaking in solitude. A sleek black SUV pulled up. Victor stepped out first. Dressed sleeves rolled up on a crisp shirt, khakis, and the gaze of someone who hadn't come to donate, but to rebuild from what had been forgotten. The 3 boys followed Malik, still wearing his worn-out hoodie. Darius, hands in his pockets, but eyes bright with purpose, and Jalen, hair still tousled by the morning breeze, walking with the quiet confidence of someone who had grown up after that rain-soaked day. Standing at the gate was Edna Rawlings, an elderly neighbor who'd lived there most of her life. She wore a straw hat, clutched an old notebook, and squinted through tears. I've lived in this town for nearly 70 years. I've never seen anyone return for a place. Most folks forgot. Victor bowed slightly. Then today, let's remember together. They walked inside the ceiling, stained with water furniture askew, dust covering shelves no one had touched in years. Malik whispered. My mom used to take piano lessons here. I learned martial arts in that corner, Jalen added. Me, I just sneaked in for free cookies during town events. Darius laughed. Victor looked at them, then turned to the team of engineers and architects waiting. We'll keep the soul of this place, but we'll give it a new body. Blueprints spread out on the table. A new playground, community classrooms, a mini library, a shared space with Wi-Fi, and an open kitchen for town gatherings. That very evening, the first images appeared across social media. The boys who helped a stranger in the rain are now helping their town rise again. It wasn't just a tire. They're repairing a piece of the community's heart. The hashtag Evergrove lives again spread like wildfire. Comments flooded Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. I cried seeing these kids. They're not just kind. They're brave, selfless, and don't even realize they're inspiring us. Who said Gen Z only knows TikTok? These 3 just sparked a miracle. As night fell, Victor sat with the boys on the center's porch under newly strung fairy lights, gently swaying in the breeze. It may take weeks, maybe months, he said, but one day kids will laugh here again, just like you once did. Jalen looked at him and asked, Are you sure this is the right thing to do? I mean, you don't owe us anything, or this town. Victor gazed into the distance. We don't always need to owe something to do what's right. Sometimes all it takes is a rainstorm, a flat tire, and 3 boys, unafraid to get wet. Malik tightened his grip around a warm cocoa mug, eyes gleaming at night. Then, we start tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Victor smiled. Right now. And so the dream of reviving Evergrove began not with capital investment, but with kindness sown in the rain and nurtured through laughter, resolve, and a promise never spoken aloud. The next morning, before the sun had even risen above the eastern hills, the empty lot in front of the Evergrove Community Center was noisy. Trucks rumbled, saws whirred, and hammers clinked against nails, like the heartbeat of something coming back to life. Victor, dressed in a simple white t-shirt, stood among the construction crew. The 3 boys, Malik, Darius, and Jalen had arrived early. Each was given a hard hat, a broom or shovel in hand, and the gleaming eyes of children waking up on Christmas morning. "Who says 15-year-olds can't build the future?" Victor laughed, watching Jalen help an older worker mix cement. Local photographer Lena Tran was on site, documenting the entire restoration. Through her lens, every bead of sweat, every smile, every dusty handshake between the kids became as vivid as a painting pulled from real life. At the same time, a short video of the boys helping Victor change a tire in the rain, captured by a passerby, was uploaded to TikTok. Within 24 hours, the video had over 3 million views. I showed this clip to my kids to teach them about kindness. They helped without knowing who he was. That says everything. This is what we need daily, especially in times like these. Evergrove's official social media page, previously only used for posting town meeting schedules, suddenly came to life. Dozens of users offered to donate, send books or toys, or volunteer their time. A mother from another state wrote, "We'd never heard of Evergrove before, but tonight, our whole family talked about it over dinner at the construction site. Ms. Edna brought sandwiches for the workers." Malik took the tray from her and bowed politely. "You remind me of your grandfather. He helped lay the first bricks of this center," she said, her voice softening with memory. Jalen picked up a termite-eaten piece of wood and quietly handed it to Victor. "I think we should keep this part of the memory." Victor nodded. "Good. We're not rebuilding to erase the past, but to continue its story." That afternoon, as sunlight slanted through the window frame's still missing glass, the boys painted a message in blue on a freshly primed wall. This is where kindness begins again. At the end of the day, as everyone rested under the old oak tree beside the center, Victor asked, "Let's say one day people no longer talk about you three as the boys who helped change a tire. Would you regret it?" Malik replied without hesitation. "I don't need anyone to remember. As long as one other kid learns about kindness right here, it's enough." Victor looked at the boys, as if glimpsing a better future not built from wealth, power, or technology, but from people who hadn't lost what matters most: simple, genuine kindness. 1 week later, the once quiet village of Evergrove buzzed with life like never before. Today was the grand reopening of the community center, and the townspeople had given it a new name: the House of Tomorrow. On the lush green lawn, wooden tables and benches were arranged in long rows, decorated with upcycled ribbons. Children laughed and played, while elders brought homemade pastries to share. Hand-painted flags lined the entry path, each bearing a message: helping is strength. We begin again together. 3 kids, 3 seeds of hope. At the center of the modest wooden stage stood a single microphone. As the music stopped, the crowd fell silent. A man stepped forward. Not the mayor, not a congressman. Mr. Samuel Ortiz, the town's plumber, had lived in Evergrove for 42 years. He pulled a small piece of paper from his shirt pocket and looked at the audience. "I didn't go to college, and I don't understand much about this tech revolution. But today I saw something I haven't seen in 20 years. The eyes of children who still believe in tomorrow." He turned toward the 3 boys standing beside Victor. When Malik, Darius, and Jalen fixed a flat tire in the rain, they had no idea what would follow. But today, because of that small act of kindness, we have a place to gather, learn, and hope again. And I want to thank not just them, but everyone who chose to give instead of doubt. Applause erupted. A gentle breeze passed through yellow leaves, dancing in the air like blessings unspoken. Victor was invited to the stage, but he quietly stepped aside and asked Ethan, Jalen's 8-year-old brother, to speak in his place. The little boy, tiny in his worn white shirt, stood before the mic and swallowed nervously. "I don't know how to say much, But the other day my brother Jalen said kindness is something you give without asking for anything back. Today we saw kindness come back to the whole town. The courtyard erupted in clapping. A woman wiped away tears. Someone turned and hugged their daughter more tightly. As the sunlight tilted behind the mountains that afternoon, a drone camera soared overhead, capturing the entire celebration. That video just hours later was uploaded to Good News Network with the headline, "3 teens, 1 flat tire, and a whole town reborn." The comments poured in. I'd lost faith in community until I saw this clip. Is there a way to donate to Evergrove? The world needs more Maliks, Dariuses, and Jalens. Night fell. Beneath soft yellow lights, the townspeople gathered around a bonfire behind the center. Victor sat next to Lena, the photographer, and whispered, "I came here because of a flat tire, but what I found was a home." Lena smiled, resting her camera on her lap. And maybe for the first time, I don't need to take another photo. The most beautiful image is already alive right before us. Within 72 hours, the video of Evergrove's reopening celebration reached over 6 million views across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Local media called it the Festival of Unexpected Kindness. But no one anticipated the ripple effect wouldn't stop at one small town. CNN aired a special report, Priceless Kindness, the story of 3 teenagers who changed a community. NPR invited Ms. Karen, the community center director, for an interview. When kindness spreads, it doesn't need a formula. It only needs someone to witness it and someone to believe in it. People across the internet began sharing their small acts of kindness under hashtags Tire Change, Challenge, Kindness, Ripple, Evergrove, Effect. A teacher in Montana wrote, "I just used this video as a topic in my ethics class. My 12-year-old students cried during Ethan's speech. A group of university students in Japan launched a free car repair service for older people, naming it the Jalen Project." Meanwhile, Victor received invitations from universities, nonprofits, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But he declined them all. He told Lena, during a quiet interview, "I didn't come here to be honored. I came to say thank you. All the attention should go to the 3 boys and the town that raised their hearts." A week later, the town of Evergrove received an unexpected visit. A delegation from the Global Community Foundation arrived to assess the possibility of turning Evergrove into a model for sustainable community development. They weren't just interested in the center. They wanted to invest in life skills training for teens, a community agriculture zone, a local artisan and crafts workshop. On the bulletin board outside the community center, a new sign was posted, "From one kind act to a powerful beginning." Malik, Darius, and Jalen were invited to speak at a TEDx youth event. They wore new matching outfits, standing on a big stage in front of hundreds, yet kept their words humble. Malik, "I think the world doesn't need superheroes. It just needs someone to stop and ask, 'Do you need help?'" Jalen, "We didn't change the world. We just changed a tire. But somehow, that made people look at themselves differently." The story of Evergrove, which began with a rainstorm and a flat tire, had become a global symbol of moral action. But more importantly, it reignited a simple yet profound question. If you could change something with a small gesture, would you stop? When the spotlight faded and the social media shares began to slow, Evergrove remained a small town with old cracks and untold stories. That night, after a day full of laughter, the community center stood quiet. Inside the administration room, Ms. Karen, the center's longtime director, sat alone, flipping through old files she had once been too afraid to touch. A handwritten letter fell from a dusty drawer. The shaky handwriting read, "I just want a place to go after school so I don't have to wander the streets when my parents fight." Karen froze. It was from Ellie, a girl who used to come to the center but had disappeared 3 years ago after her mother was arrested for drug charges. No one mentioned Ellie anymore, just as no one ever asked Karen why she kept the center running for over 20 years with almost no funding. After returning to drop off some grant paperwork, Victor found her wiping tears from her face. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I just realized I wasn't as alone as I thought," she replied. Victor hosted a community talk in the small town hall the next day. There are no spotlights or cameras, just folding chairs, hot coffee, and honesty. An older man stood up first. "I used to think kids today only cared about their phones, but those boys made me want to restart my free mechanics class at the center." A young woman said, "When I was little, I got teased for being a black girl who liked coding. If there had been a place like this, maybe I wouldn't have had to teach myself." Behind a locked bedroom door, a single mother shared, "I never thought this town could unite for anything other than winter football. But today, I see something more." Hope, Malik, Darius, and Jalen sat quietly in the back row, but when Ms. Karen called their names, they walked forward without hesitation. Darius, the quietest one, took the mic. "I used to think I'd leave this town as soon as possible. But now, I want to stay, to help turn it into a place worth living in." No one spoke after that, but the applause thundered across the room. After the gathering, the local newspaper ran the headline, "Evergrove Center, a place healing." Not just kids, but a town that stayed silent. Too long. Victor pinned that article to the wooden board outside the center. No frame, no glass, just a paperclip. And underneath he wrote with a marker, "We don't need a miracle. We need to remember how to be human." A week after the community talk, the wooden message board outside the center was filled with handwritten notes. Not ads or announcements, but memories. "I once snuck in here just to get out of the rain. Now I want to donate a coffee machine. This center was the first place I ever finished an entire book. If those boys could change a whole town, I could start over too." On Sunday morning, an old bus with Chicago license plates pulled up in front of the center. Stepping off was Mariah Lewis, an Evergrove native who had once earned a full-ride scholarship to college, but hadn't returned since graduation. She didn't send notice, didn't ask for recognition. Mariah walked into the center, quietly taking in the freshly painted walls, the neatly arranged reading nook, and the activity board covered in crisp new schedules. Her eyes landed on the wooden sign with a line scrawled in a young boy's handwriting, rough but resolute. "We don't need a miracle. We need grown-ups to believe we're worth it." Mariah turned to Karen and hugged her tightly without saying a word. "You're back?" Karen asked softly. "And this time, I'm staying." During a youth drop-in session, another familiar face appeared that afternoon. Tremaine Dixon, a well-known rapper who had grown up just down the block. No entourage, no live stream, just a hoodie and an old guitar slung over his back. He sat down, strummed a few chords, and smiled. "I wrote my first lyrics here, sitting by that window with the leaky roof. Today, I want to teach these kids how to write verses, not for fame, but for survival." Later that week, the center received 5 new volunteer applications from people who had left Evergrove decades ago. One was a wind energy engineer, another a graphic designer, and another a mother of 3. A mother. They all wrote the same line. "I left Evergrove because no one believed this place had a future. Now I've seen 3 boys prove the opposite." On social media, the hashtag #BackToEvergrove began to spread, not through viral marketing, but through sincere, unpolished clips. Mariah recounts how she first learned to apply for FAFSA at the center. Tremaine, reading his first ever rap line written in that dusty corner room. An 80-year-old man wiping down a freshly painted ping-pong table whispering, I played my last match here, back in 1964. The returns weren't loud, but with each one, the community felt more whole, not because people sought the past, but because they came to build a future for kids like themselves. Victor, standing on the second-floor balcony of the center, watching the stream of visitors coming and going, simply nodded. We're not rebuilding a building. We're restoring memories so they're not just nostalgia, but hope. On a radiant May morning, Evergrove buzzed with life as if it had never known the word sorrow. The community center courtyard, once just cracked concrete, now featured a small wooden stage strung with golden lights and neat rows of folding chairs. It was the official grand opening of the new community center. No celebrity guests. There are no flashy banners, just a freshly installed sign, Evergrove Center, where one small act changed everything. Karen opened the ceremony with a simple, unembellished thank you. If once we had reasons to give up today, we have 3 reasons to begin again. Malik, Jaden, and Victor. The 3 boys stepped forward, each in a white shirt, hands trembling slightly, but eyes alight with pride. None of them had prepared a speech. They didn't need to. Victor spoke first, his voice still young and unsure. I just wanted to help change a tire. But Mr. Chris ended up changing an entire town. Jaden smiled shyly, scratching his head. I thought adults were always too busy to notice us. If they just looked down once, they'd see us standing here. Malik, a little more composed, looked out toward the audience where his mother sat crying quietly. It rained hard that day, but today the sun's out. So I guess we did something right, didn't we? The courtyard erupted in applause. At that moment, a local TV reporter who had followed the story since the first video stood up and asked to say a few words. She raised her camera and spoke. This is the kind of moment I never thought I'd get to film, a community that didn't need rescuing, just someone to believe in goodness. These 3 boys' stories have been shared over 10 million times a week. But the numbers don't matter. What matters is this. Everyone saw themselves in what these boys did, because we've all at some point longed for someone to believe in us. Just once. After the ceremony, the town lingered. Children ran across the yard. Adults lined up to try eco-friendly games built by the kids themselves. In one quiet corner, Chris stood silently. He didn't make a speech, didn't sit in the front row. He just watched. An older woman approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. You did something good, Chris. He shook his head gently, still watching the 3 boys. I just saw something good and chose not to look away. The following week, a nonprofit educational foundation announced a new initiative. They would model a nationwide program after Evergrove's story called the Seed of Kindness Fund, designed to spread youth-led community care across small towns nationwide. No building was named after the boys. No bronze statue was erected. But in one 4th-grade classroom, after hearing the story during homeroom, a student wrote on the whiteboard, "Not all heroes need capes. Sometimes they need to show up at the right time." Evergrove didn't change because of money. It didn't change because of fame. It changed because on a rainy afternoon, 3 boys chose to stop instead of moving on.